Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Westfield Bank. For more than 160 years, Westfield Bank has been an important community presence and commercial leader in the Pioneer Valley. With convenient full banking services in Westfield, West Springfield, East Longmeadow, Agawam, Feeding Hills, Springfield, Southwick, as well as Enfield and Granby, Connecticut, visit us on the web at westfieldbank.org. We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
Morning, Westfield. It is 6:04. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses. It is Wednesday, June 27th. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm joined this morning in the studio with our producer, Pete Coles. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning. Do you know yesterday was halfway to Christmas?
No, I did not know that.
Yep, halfway to Christmas.
Wow. Well, you know what? I was talking. Who was I talking to? Oh, my sister-in-law, Donna. We were talking about the fact that we had.
Sorry to floor you right off the bat.
No, that's okay. But we were coming home from an appointment that we had last night, and it was about 8:35, and we commented that it was still light out.
Yes.
And I said, it's so funny because I said I always think about this in December, when it is 4:30 in the afternoon and it's already dark,
yes.
and to think that it's 4 hours later and it still wasn't really dark out, so kind of interesting. So that real dichotomy between.
If we didn't have that tilt, we'd be half of the world would be a frozen ice ball.
It's true. We have to do what we have to do.
Yeah.
All right, so halfway to Christmas. So should we start our shopping? What are we supposed to be doing here?
No, but
gathering our lists or what?
I heard that XM had a special Christmas music channel going on for the day.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, that's funny.
I think that's insane.
I should
anyways.
have thought of that, but okay. Yeah, no, that's okay, because we know that they'll start playing Christmas music like the day after Halloween, and we'll have plenty of it at the time. Yeah, exactly.
I get enough of it the week of. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I used to just love it, but now they just, you have these stations. First of all, they start it too early, and second of all, it's the non-stop stuff. I have an issue with that. I don't
mind it on Christmas Day.
I feel like Kenny Stomsky. I feel like I'm doing a rant, but here's my issue. My issue is that in the good old days, after Thanksgiving, all those great radio stations out there that play kind of light music that, you like to listen to at work, would just play every once, like every couple hours they would throw a Christmas song in there. And they would do that for several weeks. And then, as you got closer to Christmas, they would be more frequently. I thought that was a great way to do it. Now it's 24/7 nonstop.
Mix one year went like the day after Thanksgiving. They went nonstop until Christmas.
Well,
anyway, are you trying to blow up your listenership?
This year, there were like 2 or 3 stations that did that, and they started before Thanksgiving. And I just thought, I can't do this.
Nice way to change a channel. Click.
That's exactly what I did. I started throwing in my CDs and just, and I love Christmas music, but not, 6 weeks of it nonstop. It's just too much. Anyway, so here we are, June 27th, talking about Christmas. So we're going to get right out of the gate. We're going to start with famous birthdays, because our first song has to do with a very famous woman whose birthday is today.
That first song too.
Oh yes, I know. And Pete, after we go through all this, Pete will explain why that's. And
I also have
the
song.
Yeah, and I also have like a little history of that song. So, all right. So, famous birthdays. It is the birthday of the late Helen Keller, educator, activist, and journalist. She was born June 27th, 1880 in Tuscumbia, Alabama. She died in 1968 at the age of 87. I did not know this about Helen Keller. I thought she was born without her senses. She was not. She was born with her senses intact. However, in 1882, when she was just 2 years old, she was stricken by an illness that left her blind and deaf. And what's interesting is when I did my research on this, they think, although they don't know, that it was either scarlet fever or meningitis. They're not sure which of those. I had both of those as a child.
Either one of those could do you in.
Absolutely, yeah. Anyway, she became so that was at the age of 2. She became wild and unruly during her early childhood.
I would think so.
Yeah. So looking for answers and inspiration, in 1886, so when she was 6 years old, Helen Keller's mother sent her and her father to Baltimore, Maryland, to see specialist Dr. Julian Chisholm. After examining Keller, Chisholm recommended that she see Alexander Graham Bell, there's a name that we all know, the inventor of the telephone, who was working with deaf children at the time. Bell met Keller and her parents and suggested that they travel to the Perkins Institute for the Blind in Boston, Massachusetts. There, the family met the school's director, and he suggested that Helen Keller work with one of the Institute's most recent graduates, Anne Sullivan. And so began a 49-year relationship between teacher and pupil. In 1890, Keller began speech classes at the Horace Mann School for the Deaf in Boston. Horace Mann, there's that name again. She would
found this joint, too.
I know. There were all these connections here. She would toil for 25 years to learn to speak so that others could understand her. Helen Keller graduated cum laude from Radcliffe in 1904 at the age of 24. Throughout the first half of the 20th century, Helen Keller tackled social and political issues, including women's suffrage, pacifism, and birth control. She testified before Congress, strongly advocating to improve the welfare of people who are blind. In 1920, she helped found the ACLU. Who knew? I just learned so much about her. And during her lifetime, Helen Keller received many honors and recognition of her accomplishments and humanitarian efforts. So truly an inspirational story. Happy birthday to the late Helen Keller. It is also the birthday today, June 27th, of figure skater Viktor Petrenko. He was born June 27th, 1969 in Ukraine. He is 49 years old today. Viktor Petrenko began serious figure skating training at age 10. He mastered his first triple jump at age 11. Age 11, first triple jump. Pretty amazing for those of you who watch figure skating. He made an international splash by claiming the bronze medal at the 1988 Winter Olympics in Alberta, Canada, and also finished third at that year's European and World Figure Skating Championships. He went on to earn a gold medal at the 1992 Winter Olympics in Albertville, France. He became known for a breathtaking combination of elegance and athleticism and thrilled audiences with his humorous routines. And I do remember Viktor Petrenko when he was skating. Mm-hmm. He really was funny. Like he was very animated on the ice. You know, he was a lot of fun to watch. He fostered the career of fellow Ukrainian skating championship Oksana Bayul, and in recent years has trained such talents as American Johnny Weir. So happy 49th birthday to figure skater Viktor Petrenko. Here's a name from the past, Pete. It is
second sound.
It is also the birthday of Ross Perot. Business leader Ross Perot, born June 27th, 1930 in Texarkana, Texas. He's 88 years old today. Ross Perot is best known as one of the most successful third-party candidates in American history. From 1957 to 1962, Perot worked for IBM, which I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. Afterward, he formed his own company, Electronic Data Systems, which he sold to General Motors in 1984 for $2.5 billion.
Cha-ching.
Cha-ching. In 1992, Perot ran as an independent candidate for the U.S. presidency, winning nearly 19% of the popular vote, which is that's
he funded his own campaign,
yes,
too.
He did, and that's an amazing statistic. I knew he had done well. I did not realize it was 19% of the popular vote. He ran again in 1996. The Reform Party, which he founded in 1995, gradually established its autonomy from him. He's authored several books, including Ross Perot, My Life and the Principles for Success, and he also authored United We Stand. So happy 88th birthday.
I remember
to Ross Perot.
I just hear John Sucking sound going on around here.
You know what? The one that the line that Gary always uses that he used was when he was running against Clinton was that it was like Walmart running against like a 7-Eleven or something like that. You know, he had some great one-liners. He was kind of known for his one-liners.
Yeah, because he could put somebody down in one sentence.
Yeah,
just blow them away
with the southern
and laugh
accent.
about it too.
I know, with the southern accent. He was a very entertaining candidate for sure. So happy birthday, Ross Pro. It is also the birthday of fashion designer Vera Wang. She was born June 27th in 1949 in New York City. She's 69 years old today. Now, here you go. She was a talented figure skater, which I did not know. Wang competed professionally throughout her teens, but when she graduated from college in 1971, she shelved her skating career and began working for Vogue magazine, which she got that job. It was kind of like an entry-level job. Within a year, at the age of 23, she was promoted to senior fashion editor. Like, how does that happen? She held that title for the next 15 years, and in 1987, Vera Wang left Vogue to take a job as design director for accessories at Ralph Lauren. She designed her own wedding dress and then opened up a bridal boutique and soon launched her own signature collection. But it all started with her wedding gown.
Apparently, she's a type A personality.
Yeah, right? You think? Now hugely popular, she has a large Hollywood following and also designs lingerie, jewelry, and home products. In 2006, Vera Wang reached a deal with Kohl's, a chain of department stores, to produce a less expensive line of ready-to-wear clothing exclusively for them called Simply Vera. So if you go into and I was in Kohl's the other day, and they have lots of Simply Vera collections in there. So
there's also
happy 69th birthday to
local birthday for somebody who protects us all the time.
And who's that?
One of the meteorologists at National Weather Service, Boston.
Okay.
Great name for a meteorologist, Glenn Field.
Glenn Field. Love it. Happy birthday. That's a shout out to Glenn Field.
Yeah.
All right. So it is.
I guarantee he's working this morning.
There you go. So hopefully tuning in. So it is 6:14. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses. So before we take our first break, the song that I chose is Tommy. Well, it's Pinball Wizard from the rock opera Tommy. So I went online to get a little. Did you ever see the rock opera?
No.
I never did either. I mean, it was a huge thing back in the day.
Are you doing your Michael Buster McMahon impersonation or something? This is what he does.
I know. And by the way, but we'll segue to that. But I've been listening to Michael Buster McMahon. You know what? That is just. That's a great show.
Yeah.
He's on from, what is he on, 8 to 10?
8 to 10
on Mondays.
Yes.
And so I started listening to him on my way into the senior center.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. He gives the whole background of the music. So yeah, this is like my Michael Buster McMahon imitation. But so the central character of the rock opera Tommy is Tommy himself. So after seeing, this is the premise of the show.
Okay.
After seeing his stepfather murder his father during an argument over his mother, who was played by Anne Margaret, young Tommy goes into shock, suddenly becoming psychosomatically deaf, dumb, and blind. As a teenager, Tommy, who's played by Roger Daltrey, stumbles upon a pinball machine and discovers he's a natural prodigy at the game. Fame and fortune follow for Tommy as he first becomes a pinball champion and later the messiah of a religious cult who view his pinball skills as a miraculous sign of divine intervention. So that's kind of the premise of the opera.
Yep.
So the song that I chose is Pinball Wizard because it's about someone who's deaf, dumb, and blind. So obviously in honor of Helen Keller's birthday. But Pete has another take on this. So Pete, fill in your take.
So one of the biggest pinball conventions in the country will be happening this weekend in Sturbridge at the Host Hotel.
Do they always do it in Sturbridge?
Yes.
Okay, because I was going to say, I remember last year.
Perfect.
Really?
Yes, because the function rooms, they set up over 200 pinball machines to play, free play.
Okay.
And I would say about 80% of them are for sale. So you can walk out with one of them if you have the proper transportation for it.
Okay. And I'm sure people obviously know that and come prepared.
You leave them for the duration of the show, and then you come pick them up on Sunday. But the thing goes from Thursday night until Sunday afternoon. And their convention area, they have dealers, new pinball machines, parts guys, all kinds of stuff to refurbish machines. So pinball is still alive and well.
Oh, it is. I remember you because do you go every year? I know you've gone before.
I've gone a couple of years. Yeah.
Are you and Kenny going or?
Yes,
or,
we're going to go on Saturday morning before the fireworks. Yeah.
Fun.
So we're going to go out for the day on Saturday, and we're going to shoot a show for public access, but maybe also air it on the radio.
Okay, sounds good. So we're going to listen to Pinball Wizard by The Who.
Ever since I was a young boy, I played the silver ball. From Soho down to Brighton, I must have played them all. But I ain't seen nothing like him in any amusement hall. That deaf, dumb, and blind kid sure plays a mean pinball. He stands like a statue, becomes part of the machine. Feeling all the bumpers, always plays clean. Plays by intuition, the digit counts as fall. That deaf, dumb, and blind kid sure plays a mean pinball. He's a pinball wizard, there has to be a twist. A pinball wizard's got such a submarine. How do you think he does? I don't know. What makes him so good? Ain't got no distractions, can't hear no buzzers and bells. Don't see no lights flashing, plays by sense of smell. Always gets a replay, never seen him fall. That deaf, dumb, and blind kid sure plays a mean pinball. I thought I was somebody table king, and I just handed my pinball crown to him. Even on my favorite table, he can't beat my best. His disciples lead him, and he just does the rest. He's not crazy, flipping fingers, never seen him fall. That deaf, dumb, and blind kid sure plays a mean pinball.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
Thursday morning from 6 till 8, it's Patrick Berry, owner of the Westfield News Group,
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:21. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. June 27th today, so that last song, Pinball Wizard, was in honor of the birthday of Helen Keller, as well as, what is it called, Pete?
Pintastic New England, and you can buy tickets online or you can buy them at the door. And I think for like $30 you can go all day. There's passes for the whole thing. There's special events.
They must have food there, right? I mean, they must have.
There's a restaurant.
I know there's
in the
a
hotel.
restaurant there. Yeah,
I think they have some food vendors as well.
Yeah.
in the convention area.
I mean, just if people wanted to kind of make a day of it,
yeah, but
be
they
kind
have
of
like
fun.
seminars you could sit in how to build your own arcade ring from scratch.
It must. This must just attract a whole interesting group of people. I always think when
All
you
up
have
and down the Eastern Seaboard.
yeah, I feel like when you have some kind of a gathering that's specific to something, you know, like that you get an interesting group.
My cousin is a pinball nut. He and two of my cousins, they both like collected spec sheets and things like that, and I think one of them each owned one at one point.
How fun.
And he wanted to fly in from Indiana, and he just couldn't make it work.
I would imagine, is it like really loud? I just imagine all these
the game room
pinballs.
Is.
Yeah, the game room.
The game room is. The convention hall, it is sometimes because there's not as many machines.
Yeah.
You should go out there and just take a look at it.
Well,
You'd laugh your head off.
I'm kind of busy this weekend, but anyway, Well, we have a big family wedding going on this weekend, which we now refer to as the royal wedding, because I keep saying I think that Meghan Markle didn't spend as much time preparing as the whole Gorman family is for this big wedding. My niece is getting married, but anyway.
Oh boy.
Okay, so today, June 27th, besides all these great birthdays, it is also we have two very important anniversaries to talk about. So first of all, today is the 37th wedding anniversary of my husband Gary and me. So Gary, if you're listening, happy anniversary to you. I love you. 37 years. We were married in 1981. So, and then tomorrow, which is June 28th, is the second anniversary of Gary's open heart cardiac surgery. His open heart surgery, he had a valve repair, but it was a very major repair, and that happened the day after our anniversary. So it was 2 years ago. So we're actually going to talk a little bit more about that second hour when we have Mike Knappich on as my guest second hour, who now works for Bay State Health. Mm-hmm. He's Vice President of Governmental Affairs. So we'll be talking more about that because Gary's surgery was done at Bay State. We'll talk a little bit about that and the recovery process and what Bay State has to offer. So, Gary, happy wedding anniversary, happy cardiac surgery anniversary. So we have that going on. Let me see. What else do I want to talk about? Okay, let's talk about, Pete, we're going to talk about what happened since we start with, kind of what did we do since we last were on air.
Yep.
So I had to type up a list this time. That's how much stuff we've done since we were on air last Wednesday. So first of all, Thursday night, and I know Jay talked about this a little bit yesterday on Bob Plass's Wow It's Tuesday show. So Thursday night we had our first concert on the green, our first 2018 summer concert on the green.
Doing city council.
I didn't know. I never saw you there, so I didn't know if you had made it over or not.
No,
because I know you were at council.
Right about 9 o'clock.
I know Joe Mitchell came flying over, but I think he only heard the last couple. So the performer was Timmy Maya, who did a Motown review, and he was excellent. They were so good.
There was pre-controversy for that one because he also has a rap career on the side.
Well, he didn't do anything controversial.
Right, and I know I was like, well, they book him as a Motown act. I don't think,
Nope, he didn't do anything controversial. Yeah. And in fact, as Jay said, he asked Jay if he could play a couple of numbers that were a little bit off the Motown review, just because there were kids in the front dancing and so forth. And Jay said, go for it. So really great, perfect night. I mean, the weather was you could not have asked for better weather. I mean, it was dry. It was warm but not hot. It was just, oh my gosh, it was a great night. So I made my little list here of celebrity sightings because there were some celebrity sightings. So of course, the first person I ran into, who I didn't really run into him because I knew he was going to be there, was Patrick Berry, owner of the Westfield News Group. Patrick was working at the 350 table. Yep. So, which was a couple tables down from the G&E. Lisa Stowe was there with her team. And by the way, we had the G&E over at the Senior Center yesterday doing their drop-in center on Whip City Fiber. So I asked Mary Lou, I never made it down there, but I kept hearing people coming into the Senior Center asking where they were. We had them in the Creativity Center. So I said to Mary Lou, how did that go? She said it was packed out there. Yeah. She said so that was great. So G&E was there answering all your questions. Joe Mitchell, City Advancement Officer, did make it over after he must have blown out of the the
did his thing when he
city
was
council
gone, yeah.
meeting, a little bit early. So he came over. My principal clerk, Carol Shannon, was there enjoying it with a friend of hers. I literally bumped into, you know how like we were kind of crowded around, and I kind of took a step back, and I bumped into somebody, and we both kind of said, "Oh, excuse me," and turned around. It was Chief Mary Regan from the fire department,
That's
and we
funny.
both kind of went, "Oh, it's you."
Her retirement is coming up in 2 weeks.
Exactly. So we had about a 20-minute conversation, at least 20 minutes. We kind of took off, and she was all happy and frolicky. And I said, "Well, you can tell your retirement's coming up soon." And Gary had actually played in a golf tournament the week before, and Mary was in the foursome right in front of him. So Gary came home. He knew all the women in the foursome that was playing in front of them, and Gary came home and he said, "Hey, I saw Chief Regan." He said, "She is an excellent golfer."
Oh, yeah.
Excellent golfer. In fact, Gary said, "Boy, next year, if we're in the same tournament, I want her on my team." He said she
She plays all over the country.
The three other men that Gary was playing with all were very impressed. Gary said, "Great." So anyway, she was there, and toward the end of the concert, bumped into former Mayor and First Lady Dan and Trish Knapik. Dan was there, home for a little little
He tries not
R&R.
to miss those if he can.
Yeah. So he was home, and I think the kids had something going on baseball-wise, so he was home for that. So just a great concert. And the next one will be in July.
I'll be away for that.
You will be down in doing your baseball thing. Speaking of baseball,
Yep.
Let me see. I know I have it here somewhere. Well, we'll talk about that later.
Third Thursday in July.
I know. I have it, too. I have the date.
I think it's the 19th.
I want to say that. Where the heck is it?
Because 15, 16, 17, I think it's the
Oh,
18th.
nope, I
or
got
the
it. I got
19th.
it. 19th. Yep,
See?
July 19th. Kicks Country Concert with Craig Campbell and regional artist Joseph Gallant. So that's
Cool.
So it's a country one next time. That's always a lot of fun. That always
Well, country's become
brings
where
out the
rock and
crowd.
roll was in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, exactly. And usually the country one really packs it in.
Oh, yeah.
So July 19th.
Because these
so
are artists
be
that
there.
1 or 2 years later are hitting the top of the country charts.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. So lots of fun. All right. So it is 6:29. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses. So as I mentioned before, today is Gary and my 37th wedding anniversary, and I decided to play this 6:30 song. This is the song that Gary and I walked down the aisle to. It's "Follow Me" by John Denver. So we'll have a listen.
It's by far the hardest thing I've ever done, to be so in love with you, so alone. Follow me where I go, what I do, who I know. Make it part of you to be a part of me. Follow me up and down, all the way and all around. Take my hand and say you'll follow me. It's long been on my mind, you know it's been a long, long time. I've tried to find a way that I can make you understand the way I feel about you, just how much I need you to be there where I can talk to you when there's no one else around. Follow me where I go, what I do, who I know. Make it part of you to be a part of me. Follow me up and down, all the way and all around. Take my hand, say you'll follow me. See, I'd like to share my life with you, show you things I've seen, places that I'm going to, places where I've been. To have you there beside me and never be alone. And all the time that you're with me, we will be at home. Follow me where I go, what I
WSKB's programming is generously underwritten by Whip City Fiber, Westfield Gas and Electric, where they offer gigabit internet speed. Whip City Fiber, turning Westfield's neighborhoods into fiberhoods. On the web at whipcityfiber.com.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
He rules the roost on Thursday from 6 till 10. It's Patrick Berry.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:33. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. It is Wednesday, June 27th, end of the month.
Yes.
That deep voice that you hear with
Yes.
me is Pete Coles, who's got this chest thing going on because of his allergies. So
Who'd like to get rid of the bronchitis.
I know. If you hear coughing in the background, it's Pete. Anyway, my name is Tina Gorman, and I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host. And by the way, folks, it's only 59 degrees out there this morning.
It was nice to sleep, but I'm closing the windows and turning on the air conditioner today because it's going to get muggy.
Yes, it is. It is going to get muggy. Although I heard that it's only going up into the low 80s, and then I also heard that the showers and rain are probably not coming in until after midnight.
Right.
So
but
that's a good
tomorrow
thing.
showery.
Tomorrow is going to be
Friday. Turn on the oven.
Yeah.
It's going to be 90.
It's going to start getting.
Might have an extended heat wave.
I know. We have this niece who's getting married in what we refer to, the family refers to now, and my staff as the royal wedding this weekend. And so I was texting my sister-in-law going, please tell me that this is not an outdoor ceremony.
Right.
But it's not. Everything's inside, air conditioned. It'll be nice. Okay, so Pete, going back to what has transpired between last Wednesday when we last met and now. So we talked about the concert on the Green. That was on Thursday.
Yes.
Saturday.
Yes.
Huge day for me Saturday. So Saturday morning, I ran in the Boys and Girls Club road race.
Never saw you finish.
I know. That was a 5K, 10K half marathon.
'Cause I was looking for you, too. I must have been doing something else when you
Pete,
crossed.
it was my blazing speed. So I have to tell you about this race because I'm so proud of myself. So I ran the 5K.
I was even looking for your name in the finals, finish, and I didn't see it.
Oh, it's in there. So we started the race, and so here was the deal. So my best time running is the Run Westfield. It's the flat fast, which you would expect. Most people, Joe Mitchell had like a blazing time at this year's Run Westfield because it's flat and mostly flat and a little downhill by the hospital. So it's a great. This race, when we did the 5K, we started it at South Middle School, ran down Maple Street, and then cut up Mill Street. So you're going up that hill at Mill Street all the way to Highland, and then and then we kind of loop back around. So so first of all, big shout out to Officer Mark Carbonneau because there were police officers everywhere. Like at every juncture.
Thanks to the auxiliary
and the auxiliary, absolutely.
Those guys work a lot of events for free.
Don Humison was there, and all kinds of folks there. So when I got to Maple, that's where Mark Carbonneau was. So, gave him the big high five and, kept running. And I was running up Mill Street, and there was somebody behind me, some young buck who he seemed to know all the cops. Oh, I didn't know if he was a police officer or if he just knew them or what. But anyway, he's shouting because there were police officers all along Mill. So, of course, halfway up the hill, he blows by me, and he's probably, I don't know, he looked like he was in his 40s, I would say.
Yep.
So, to be expected. And so then we get to the top of Mill. We run Highland, which is long. That's a long straightaway. And then we get back out onto Western Avenue and start now heading back. So we're looping back. We go past the hospital and, past City Hall. So somewhere around the hospital, I guess, I passed this guy, which surprised me because I thought to myself, well, maybe he just gave it all the gas he had at the beginning, and now he's kind of petering out. Which was an odd place to do it though, because you're down an incline. But anyway, for the whole rest of the race, he was pretty heavy-footed, so I could hear him right behind me. So he was right behind me. So we get to I get to Fortune Adams, and I'm thinking to myself, this guy's going to pass me. I know he's going to pass me at the very end, which was fine. I mean, he's probably at least 20 years younger than I was. So we get to Fortune Adams, and it just started kind of misting and a little bit of a rain, which was fine. It was perfect. It was a perfect running weather day. It was cool, cloudy. It was wonderful. So sure enough, I come around the corner, and this guy blows past me, which was fine. So he takes off, but I was just feeling really strong. I was feeling like I had a really strong race. So I kicked it in at the end. It's hard to know what your time is because they don't have an electronic start on this one. So Joe Mitchell and I started together, and we synced our watches. So I knew my time on my own watch, which was an excellent time for that race, including the hill and everything.
Yep.
So as you know, Pete, Gary and I had tickets to go see On Your Feet at the Bushnell on Saturday afternoon. We had matinee tickets. We'd never been to the Bushnell, so I wasn't sure how long it was going to take to get there. So I had said to Gary, I'm going to run the race and just, blow out of there, get home, shower, do the hair, the whole 9 yards. So I finished the race, had a couple glasses of water. I saw Joe Mitchell. We kind of compared notes as to how we thought we did.
I saw Joe Mitchell cross. I didn't see you cross.
Yeah, well, Joe was ahead of me, of course. Okay. Joe did it. He ran I think his pace was about an 8-minute mile and change, something like that. So I left and to get ready for the Bushnell. Come to find out, I think it was the next morning, I was at the senior center, and I said, I want to check the official results.
Yeah.
So my time on my watch was I ran it in 27:27.
It's a good
my
time.
best time at Run Westfield was 27:17. I did that time 3 times at Run Westfield. So that was the unofficial time. The official time was what was it? 27:44, I think, was my official time. Mm-hmm. Which was also, a great time for that. For that race, especially with the uphill. But I came in first in my age division.
There you go.
I was so excited. So there were 7 of us between 60 and 69. That's my age division now. So I came in first in my age division, and I came in 7th for all of the women, which I was really impressed with because there were 75 that ran the 5K.
Yeah.
So I was I was so excited. I'm texting Grace and Gary, and I'm like, I kicked butt on this race and all this other stuff. So anyway, that was a lot of fun. Joe Mitchell was there. Amber Danahy ran it, but I
saw
did
her
not
cross too.
I did not see Amber. She was behind me, but I didn't see
She was
her
incognito.
at all. Okay, yeah, I didn't see her.
It took me a second because I think she was running alongside her husband.
She was. And the only reason I knew she was there was because Joe Mitchell had told me that. So you know what I did? I went up to the guy. Remember the guy I told you about? So I passed him. He passed me.
Yep.
So I went up to him after the race and I said, hey, I said, thank you. I said, you kind of pushed me in this race. And he said, well, you know what happened? He said, I passed you. He said, and then when you passed me, he said, I watched you run for about 2 minutes. And he said, she's very consistent. And he said, I'm following her because he said, that's what I was looking for, just a steady pace. He said, everybody else that I was going by, it was either like they'd go really fast and then they drop way back. He said, you were just doing a steady pace, which I was. It was just under a 9-minute mile. And he said, he said, I just followed you. I said, well, I could hear your footsteps the whole way. I said, I knew you were going to blow past me at the end, but that's okay. So that was a fun race. So then get home, change quick, run down to Hartford to the Bushnell.
I told you.
It was outstanding.
Did I not tell you?
So the show was On Your Feet. It was the story of Emilio and Gloria Estefan and the Miami Sound Machine. It was outstanding.
More about those two, though.
More about them and their life and starting in Cuba and coming to this country, their families, her family especially, and how her mother felt about her entertaining. Not a big fan. Wanted her to, be but not
because she kind of ran the household.
And also because the mother was a PhD herself. So
and a singer.
Really, and a singer. So who could not fulfill her singing dreams because of her mother and her attitude.
Yep.
So father with MS and, that whole story. But, what was really interesting was Gary said he knew, even when we got there, Gary knew nothing about. He didn't even know what we were seeing. He chose the show based on the fact that he wanted to go to a show in Connecticut, and his timeline was, I've got a couple weekends in June, and that's it. Oh, here's a musical, On Your Feet. Okay, it's at the Bushnell. We've
He
ever
didn't
been
realize
there.
when he read the byline.
No,
for
he
it?
didn't. He didn't. Well, not until we got there. It was just like it was the right
Really?
date. It was a musical, so he was like, okay, I'll go for it. He said when we got out of there, he goes, that's right up there. That may be my all-time favorite musical.
It was for me.
I mean, it was the
And I've seen Wicked and things
music
like
and
that.
the dancing and I mean, you just wanted to like dance your way out of the theater.
Yeah.
And so we go in there. We got there an hour early. Again, not knowing. Everything was smooth as silk. We got there right away, parking right across the street. So, they don't open the doors to the auditorium until 1:30.
But they have a cocktail hour.
Well, they have all kinds of stuff. We had to be careful, though, because I just ran a race. I thought if I have a cocktail, I'll be falling asleep. Of course, that's before I knew what the show was all about. I don't think anybody could have slept through that. But anyway, so we're
tell you.
right. So anyway, we're just kind of walking around, getting the lay of the land. We're chatting with one of the ushers, and all of a sudden, Gary goes, "There's somebody down. There's like a couple of steps to go down, and there's a little group of people down there." And Gary goes, "We know that man who's waving at us." And there was Jay Pagluca with
well, I
his
did tell you he was
lovely wife.
going.
I didn't know that. I remember months ago you said there were folks from WSKB going, and that's kind of as far as we got with it.
We were all going to try to go on the same night.
Yeah, so I didn't realize. So Jay was there with his wife Marion, and Cindy Gaylord with her husband Rick, and we had never met Rick.
Mm-hmm.
So it was great because this was like at 1:00, so we stood around and just shot the breeze for like about 45 minutes, and then
I was there with the
ventured our way.
glitterati Mark Auerbach.
Oh, did you go with Mark, or were you there the same night?
No, same night. It's
Okay,
opening.
'cause I
It was
knew-
Critics Night.
Yes,
so
I knew it was opening night.
That's when I took my mom. And
Yes.
so he got to meet my mom and things like that.
Yeah.
And he was pretty cool. We were talking for a little while.
Yeah. So anyway, fantastic show. If you ever have the opportunity, it's called On Your Feet.
Yes.
And you will be on your feet. I mean, it was just a real family show.
Yeah.
It was, and some of his one-liners were just the exchange
That's
between
who
the
Emilio
two of them.
is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's who he is. They didn't change or
Very
dramatize the story very much. That's
Good.
the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to see a high school do that. It'd be so much fun.
Oh my goodness.
They haven't even released it. It's still on Broadway.
Oh, it's just.
It's about to close on Broadway after 3 years, I think, in like 2 weeks or something.
Oh, I can't. You know what? I can't say enough. I would see it again in a heartbeat.
Yep.
So On Your Feet. So that was Saturday afternoon, and then Gary and I went out for dinner. So it was kind of a combination. We were sort of
Sure.
celebrating our upcoming anniversary. That was actually my Christmas present, but we were also sort of celebrating our anniversary, and then Monday, to continue with the week Monday at the Senior Center, we had the Senior Concert Band of Western Massachusetts, directed by Westfield's own Wally Gladwin, who is a retired music teacher. And those are musicians from all over the lower Pioneer Valley. But Wally was saying he loves this performance because Westfield is his hometown. So it's
sure.
kind of fun to do that. And his wife, Karen, who does some solo vocals. And what a great crowd we had at the Senior Center. This has become an annual event. This was the third year that we've done it. And it's usually the week before the 4th of July. It's very patriotic. They do a lot of marches. They start with the Star Spangled Banner, which, was great. But I was impressed with how many seniors. We probably had about 75 seniors. It was on Monday afternoon. How many of them came dressed in their red, white, and blue? And it was just really, really a lot of fun. And there are 35 members in the band. It's a huge band. I mean, fills the stage. But it was just a great afternoon of entertainment, and people were clapping along. And they finished with the Stars and Stripes, which I shared with the crowd that when I was a kid, my father was really big on, he loved music and he had a huge album collection. So on Saturday mornings, we were allowed to sleep in until 8:00 on Saturday morning. And then you had to get up, and then it was a morning full of chores, and then we would have lunch, and then you go out and play. So I said at 8:00 on Saturday morning, my father would wake us up with some rendition of something, often the Stars and Stripes, because he would put it on his Fisher stereo and blast the stereo. It's like, okay,
like
time to get up.
Revelry.
Yeah, it was exactly. I said that, or like when the caissons go rolling along, we would hear that, and all kinds of other things that my dad would play. So anyway, it was a great concert. Thank you to Wally Gladwin and the Senior Concert Band of Western Massachusetts. It is 6:46. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses. So my song for this break is by Orleans. It's Still the One. This goes out to my husband Gary. Big shout out and happy 37th anniversary, honey. You are still the one.
Well, we've been together since way back when. Sometimes I never want to see you again, but I want you to know, after all these years, you're still the one I want to whisper in my ear. You're still the one I want to talk to and beg. Still the one who turns my head. We're still having fun. Still the one. I look at your face every day, but I never saw you till I went away. When winter came, I just wanted to know, deep in the desert, I laughed for the snow. You're still the one who makes me laugh. Still the one, you're my better half. We're still having fun. Still the one. You're still the one who has helped make me strong. Still the one, wanna take you along. We're still having fun. Still the one. Yes, you are. We're still having fun, and you're still the one. You are still the one who makes me shine now. Still the one I wanna dream about. We're still having fun, and you're still the one. Ooh, we're still the one now. We're still the one. We're still having fun, and you're still the one.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Commercial Distributing Company of Westfield. Now in its third generation of family ownership, Commercial is one of the premier beverage distributors of Western Massachusetts. The Plasek family and the staff of Commercial Distributing wishes you good times throughout the year and urges you to drink responsibly.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldstate.bncollege.com.
Underwriting for community radio is provided by the YMCA of Greater Westfield. Every day, the YMCA strengthens the community through programs and services focused on youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. For all the Y's many programs and services, visit us on the web at www.westfieldymca.org. The YMCA, 67 Court Street in downtown Westfield. We're more than a gym. We're a cause. We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
Wednesday mornings from 6 till 8, it's Tina Gorman with Wake Up Wednesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:52. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm in studio this morning with the chairman of the board, producer Pete Coles. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning.
So, Pete, we have not discussed the fact that June 27th is National PTSD Awareness Day, which is post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So this day is observed annually on June 27th, and it's a day to recognize the effects post-traumatic stress has on the lives of those affected by it. Post-traumatic stress disorder has a profound effect on the lives of those who suffer from it. The statistics alone are staggering, but can only tell a portion of the story. The trauma and anxiety associated with PTSD are constant burdens inseparable from the sufferer. It was once a condition that was attributed only to returning combat veterans, but more and more the condition is diagnosed in those who have experienced violent crime or lived through catastrophic events. According to PTSD United, 20% of adults in the United States who have experienced a traumatic event suffer from PTSD. So that's not 20% of all. It's 20% who have experienced a traumatic event. The history of the day is that the United States Senate established PTSD Awareness Day in 2010, following then Senator Kent Conrad's efforts to designate a day of awareness as a tribute to Army Staff Sergeant Joe Beal of the North Dakota National Guard. Beal suffered from PTSD and took his life in April of 2007 after returning to North Dakota following his second tour of duty in the Iraq War. Beal's birthday, June 27th, was chosen to mark PTSD Awareness Day and honor his memory. So I did a little...
a lot of first responders, too.
It does. And so, I did a little digging about post-traumatic stress disorder that I wanted to share with our listening audience. It's a psychiatric disorder that can occur in people who have experienced or witnessed a traumatic event, such as it could be a natural disaster, a serious accident, a terrorist act, war or combat, of course, rape or other violent personal assault. PTSD has been known by many names in the past, such as shell shock during the years of World War I and combat fatigue after World War II. But PTSD does not just happen to combat veterans. It can occur in all people, in people of any ethnicity, nationality, or culture, and any age. PTSD affects approximately 3.5% of U.S. adults, and an estimated 1 in 11 people will experience PTSD in their lifetime. People with PTSD continue to have intense, disturbing thoughts and feelings related to their experience that last long after the traumatic event has ended. They may relive the event through flashbacks or nightmares. They may feel sadness, fear, or anger, and they may feel detached or estranged from other people. People with PTSD may avoid situations or people that remind them of the traumatic event, and they may have strong negative reactions to something as ordinary as a loud noise or an accidental touch.
Could be a trigger, yeah.
Absolutely. Symptoms fall into 4 categories, and specific symptoms can vary in severity. So the first category is intrusive thoughts, such as repeated involuntary memories, distressing dreams, or flashbacks of the traumatic event. Flashbacks may be so vivid that people feel that they are reliving the traumatic experience or seeing it before their eyes. The second category is avoiding reminders of the traumatic event, and that may include avoiding people, places, activities, objects, and situations that bring on distressing memories. People may try to avoid remembering or thinking about the traumatic event. They may resist talking about what happened or how they feel about it. And so that's why sometimes psychotherapy can be very effective for those kinds of folks.
Sure.
Number 3 would be negative thoughts and feelings may include ongoing and distorted beliefs about oneself or others. I'm bad. No one can be trusted. It may be ongoing fear, horror, anger, guilt, or shame. Much less interest in activities that they used to enjoy, or feeling, again, very detached or estranged from others. And then the 4th one would be arousal and reactive symptoms may include being irritable and having angry outbursts, behaving recklessly or in a self-destructive way, being easily startled, or having problems concentrating or sleeping. Many people who are exposed to a traumatic event experience symptoms like those described above in the days following the event. For a person with PTSD, however, the symptoms last for more than a month and often persist for months and sometimes even years. Many individuals develop symptoms within 3 months of the trauma, but the symptoms may appear later on. Those symptoms,
sometimes years later.
Yeah, absolutely. Those symptoms, well, because I think also people sometimes repress them, and as they sort of start to hit the surface again, they'll experience those symptoms. The symptoms caused significant distress or problems functioning. PTSD often occurs with other related conditions such as depression, substance use, memory problems, and other physical and mental health problems. So it certainly is, something to be aware of. Again, today is National PTSD Awareness Day, so we're just, encouraging people to be aware of it, to gain an understanding and realize that it's not just veterans, and I think that's important because that's something that we've always sort of thought it's combat fatigue, shell shock, all of those kinds of things. So anyway. All right, we have all kinds of stuff going on. We have our guest coming in a few minutes, who will be Mike Knappich. So before we take our 7 o'clock break, I'm just going to announce two upcoming events at the Senior Center, and one of them is today. So we need to get that out there. Today is Wednesday, June 27th. We have an art show that we're doing. We have an Art Unlimited class. That's the name of the class, Art Unlimited. They meet on Thursday afternoons. It is that class is partially funded through the Sarah Gillette grant. So thank you to the folks at the Sarah Gillette. We had Mike Roeder on here a couple months ago, kind of talking about the organization, the foundation, and what they do. One of the projects that they support is our Art Unlimited class. Elaine Lees is the instructor for that class. They have been working on, they work on individual pieces, and they've been working on lots of different things. And so they had asked us if they could do an art show. It's not for sale. They just want to display their artwork. So we set up the art show in the Fireside Lounge. And it's beautiful. It's really nice. Elaine was there yesterday with her husband, Mr. Lees, Bob Lees, and they got everything all set up. So it's kind of around the perimeter of the Fireside Lounge. We kept as many chairs in there as we could, so people had a resting place. But and they will be on display this morning between 10 and 2, but actually they're already up. So please feel free to stop by anytime after 8:30. Just some really interesting pieces, and I think you'll really enjoy it, and it gives the art class a chance to kind of show off what they've been doing. And then the other thing that's going on today from 11 o'clock to noon, we are going to have members of Westfield's Lions Club at the Senior Center. They're recruiting members, and this is a community service organization. This is the Westfield chapter of a national group, the Lions Club. And, we have a lot of newly retired folks who bring a lot of skills to the table. Yep. We just had somebody that was at the Senior Center the other day who filled out, we have a volunteer application, and he filled one out, and he's got some great skills. And, there are only so many volunteers we can use at the Senior Center, but there are a lot of volunteer opportunities within the city.
Yes, absolutely.
I keep saying that Westfield should really, of course, I keep saying this, so somewhere along the line I'll probably end up having to do it. But I keep saying that it would be really great if Westfield had sort of a central volunteer. You think VIPs should expand out to the city? It's sort of that idea, but I think it's matching, and other cities have done it. Other cities and towns where I've worked have done it, where they're matching volunteers all over the place. So if somebody comes and they have this set of skills and, this desire to do something that somebody is saying, okay, you would want to go work with, 350th committee, or you would want to go work with VIPs, or you would want to go work at the Forum House, or, whatever. Because there are just a lot of opportunities out there. So anyway, 11 to noon today, there will be representatives from the Lions Club. And I think this is a newly formed Westfield chapter.
Yeah, they're a couple years in.
I think they had one in the past.
They did.
I think
it disbanded and then they reformed a couple years ago.
Yep. And I know Pat Breton is the one who contacted me she works for the Westfield Fire Department. She's on that. She's in the Lions Club. Mike McCabe from the police department is in the Lions Club. So those are the two famous people that I know that are in the Lions Club. So anyway, come on out, and they'll be there to just, answer your questions and talk to them about what they're doing and what their mission is, and some of the opportunities.
There you go.
The other thing, this one is this is just for, so you'll be in the know as a WSKB listener on this one, because this is going to be in our July newsletter. Voice of Experience newsletter comes out this Saturday in the Westfield News. But I'm going to give you a heads up if you are a WSKB listener. We are hosting, the Visiting Angels Group is hosting their annual ice cream splurge at the Senior Center on Thursday, July 12th. It's a little earlier than it usually is. Just that's the way the dates worked out this year. So the tickets are going to go on sale next Tuesday at 9 a.m. and you are allowed to buy up to 4 tickets. So usually we limit it to 2, but because we have such a short window there between when the tickets go on sale and the actual event, we're broadening it to 4. So in case people are away, you can get a couple tickets for friends that are going to be out of town. So it's Thursday, July 12th. It's the entertainment begins at 11 a.m. with Dave Colucci. The tickets are $5. They go on sale Tuesday, July 3rd at 9 a.m. We'll have music. We'll have a 50-50 drawing. The ice cream sundaes are outstanding and amazing. So that's your heads up for your WSKB, our avid listeners, on what's going on coming up at the Senior Center. It is 7:03. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. We'll take our top of the hour break. When we come back, we have Mike Knappich as my guest.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646. Wednesday mornings start off right from 6 to 8 a.m. with Tina Gorman and Wake Up Wednesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:07. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. It is Wednesday, June 27th, 59 degrees out there, so it's starting out a little chilly, but Pete assures us that it will be getting hot. Warmer today,
dry.
Warm and dry.
Rainy tomorrow, and then god-awful hot for the weekend.
Yeah. So the rains aren't supposed to come in until after 6.
Yeah, and then showery
not after 6,
tomorrow.
after midnight today. Yeah, but tomorrow's going to be rainy. See, I had to flip my running schedule because I was going to run tomorrow, but then because I thought it was going to be raining today by later in the afternoon, and now they're saying, no, that's not going to start until after midnight. Rain and possible heavy rain tomorrow and maybe some thunderstorms tomorrow. So
Yep.
Good thing I threw my running stuff in at the last minute. I'll do that today. I go right past my guest's house. And his brother. My guest this morning is Mike Knappich, Vice President of Government and Community Relations with Bay State Health. Welcome to the show.
Well, good morning, Tina and producer Pete and all the listeners.
Pico's former management is coming on the show. How exciting.
Well, it's great to be back here with all of you.
It's great to have you here this morning. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you the way I pretty much start with all of my other guests, which is we're going to get a little background. So before we jump into what you're doing now and your position at Bay State, we're going to talk a little bit about your background. And I usually start by saying, I bet when you were in third grade and your third grade teacher said, what do you want to be when you grow up? You probably didn't say, I want to be a state senator, or, I want to work at, at a big healthcare, or I want to work at a university.
I don't know. This character might be different.
And yet you've done all of those things. So let's start from the beginning. Are the Knappichs originally from Westfield? Is this where you were? I know you grew up here, but where'd you start?
Yeah, so I'm third generation Westfield.
Okay.
Yeah, my great-grandparents came over from then Austria-Hungary, which became Czechoslovakia.
Are you kidding me?
No.
So did mine.
Oh, really?
Austria-Hungary.
Yeah. Which area now? What the country now?
Now they're in Prague. Well, now they're in Prague.
Oh, so you're Czech.
No, I have some in Prague. Then I have some in Budapest.
Yep.
My grandparents were Hungarian, like through and through. My other grandmother came over from Austria-Hungary. So out of my 3 grandparents, they were all either came over from Hungary or Austria-Hungary. Which is very unusual.
Yeah, no,
you don't
it is.
usually find that. And as long as I've known your brother Dan, we have never had this conversation. So who knew?
Yeah, well, we're down there in what we call Lozierville.
Yes, Lozierville.
The home of the Slovak Hall and other things. So obviously that was where the Slovak immigrants from Austria-Hungary came in the late 19th century.
Okay.
It largely worked at Columbia Bicycle and founded St. Peter's Church. So that was their little cluster.
Okay.
And there was other ethnic clusters in Westfield.
Yeah.
My mother's family, on the contrary, actually dates back to the Revolution and the Mayflower. She hails from Southwick by way of New Bedford in England. But the Knappich family is here, and we actually live in the same house, my wife and I and the kids, that my great-grandfather bought when he came to Westfield. I think we've had it since 1905 in the family.
So so I was going to say, did that stay in the family, or did that leave and then you came back in?
Well, it's circa 1775, so that's when it was built. So it's almost 250 years old.
Wow.
Something like that. And, it's one of those money pits at this point, but we've had it for...
I know. I'm thinking to myself, oh, my God. Yeah.
So it's been great. So my kids are the fourth generation, fifth generation in the house, fourth generation in Westfield. So
okay.
Yeah. So that's
all right. So you grew up in Westfield. What schools did you go to?
So I went through Highland School, Abner Gibbs, South Middle at the time.
Yeah.
Westfield High School, and then on to Holy Cross College. down in Worcester.
A Crusader.
Crusader with Bob Plass and the team from yesterday's show.
I know. I was going to say. And now, what did you study?
I studied political science.
Okay, so you kind of did have that.
Yeah, by that point, I mean, I had been in student government through middle school, through high school, president of the class kind of thing, and some great support, and went off to college, same kind of thing, and then you register to vote, obviously, at age 18, get a little bit more involved. And when I came back, I graduated from Holy Cross May of 85, and there were the local municipal elections going on at that time, and there was a couple of school committee seats open. There was going to be a turnover in 1985 in the mayor's office, number of city councilors, the school committee. My dad had been a guidance counselor in Westfield, family of teachers, uncle and aunt, and others, and my wife today, Kathy, teaches in Paper Mill. So I decided to run for a seat on the Westfield School Committee when I was 22.
Really? Right
so
out
that's
of
how
college?
it began. Right out of it was May. By June, I had the signatures in. It's on the ballot, and
Did you win?
I won. Yeah, top vote getter in the city.
Oh my!
Barbara Bush,
out of here! No way.
The late Barbara Bush, who was the folks who are listening would know who Barbara was.
Of course.
Barbara was the Athenaeum trustee for years and years, just a grande dame of Westfield. So she was number one always. And then I think I even beat the early Sullivans in a couple of elections, which was always gratifying.
He had to get that. Absolutely, had to get that one right in there. Right in there. Slid that fun fact right in there. So how many, was it the same number of people on the school committee as we have now? That hasn't changed.
Correct.
So what was that like for you? I mean, how were you treated as a 22-year-old? I mean, did people kind of treat you like, what do you know? You're wet behind the ears.
Well, there was that, obviously, so there was not a lot of experience in the real world of, obviously, both being a taxpayer. I didn't own a home at the time.
You think?
Exactly. So, it was interesting, though, but because I had the fresher perspective, having only been out of the K through 12 public schools for 4 years, I think they appreciated at the time, the veteran members of the committee. George Varellis was the mayor of Westfield at that time, and George could be sort of paternal, still paternal, but kind of a character in his own right. So it was a nice balance, and again, it was a different time in Westfield. We were going through a building phase with additions to schools. The new Munger Hill School, the new paper mill were envisioned at that time. The work at the vocational school, which you now see complete, was envisioned in the late 80s. So there was monies available.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Mike. I was going to say, was there funding at that time? Like, because we've gone through the ups and downs of, lots of money out there and then no money out there. Right. So at that time, there was some funding available.
Yeah, so the 80s were bookmarked by the Prop 2.5 in the early 80s, which was the property tax cutting measure that the voters passed in Massachusetts, and that really pulled the rug out of municipal government and schools. Schools in Massachusetts there used to be a school tax rate in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
So the school committee had what they called fiscal autonomy and could actually set a rate to fund the schools. The city council would set the tax rate for the city side, and never the twain shall meet.
Oh.
And that led to what was called Prop 2.5, which is still in effect today. Took away the fiscal autonomy, the separate school tax, and then we hit a recession in the early 80s, and then lights out, sports were cut, music programs were cut, teachers, all those things, and people may remember that. But then in the mid to late 80s, we hit an economic boom in Massachusetts. It was the explosion of Wayne computer, digital computer. We saw that obviously here in Westfield explode in a great positive way. So it was a good time. It was perhaps an era of good feelings in the schools.
Sure, absolutely.
But what goes up comes down. By the early 90s, we hit a massive recession in Massachusetts, and recovered from that with the Education Reform Act. That helped to fund the schools through the 90s and beyond. The school population was growing a little bit too.
Yeah. Yep.
So today everybody knows the story, what's happening with the middle schools, the intermediate school, that new elementary school. Everything is flat and declining now in Western Massachusetts. So it's a very different scenario.
So it's been different. So how long did you, so that was sort of now when you were on the school committee, I mean, that's not a paid position. So what were you doing after you graduated from Holy Cross? So what was the paid job that you got?
So my going back to what did you want to be when you were in third grade? My dream job from kindergarten on was to be a Friendly's ice cream manager.
Oh my God.
So that's
which is what you did.
Which is what I did.
I love it.
So,
I love it.
I got it, when I was 16, I got after being a paper boy, I got you had to know somebody to get a job as a busboy at Friendly's. So my grandparents were regular customers at the Westfield shops. Friendly's, knew the manager, and age 16, I got
hysterical.
I got a job. Folks, I think, still remember me at Friendly's, but I spent about 10 years with Friendly's through high school, through college, beyond. Entered their management training program, became a manager of two great stores. but began at the Westfield shops. I was very sad when they closed the Westfield shops.
I know. That was like overnight. I mean, I was like, when the heck did that happen?
Yeah, so the company. So then I was invited actually to become a legislative aide on the staff.
Now, how did that happen, though?
Well, because
were you still on the school committee?
Yeah, I was still on the
then?
school committee, working for Friendly's and traveling a little bit to the shops that I had managed. But then Steve Pierce, who had been the state representative in Westfield, the minority leader of the House of Representatives, was exploring a run for governor of Massachusetts and knew that he would potentially be leaving his role as state representative. So, and Steve took Peter Velas's place in the House of Representatives. So there's like X degrees of separation going back
to really
to
circle back.
And Jimmy Adams' grandfather was a state rep. Jimmy at First and Adams. So Jimmy's grandfather was a state rep in the 60s.
I never knew that.
Peter Velas and Gary Lynch there were two in Westfield, two state reps in the 70s, and then they made the House of Representatives in Massachusetts smaller. So Steve Pierce was elected in 78, served 12 years. I became his aide in the late 80s. I ran in 90, took his place, and then Seal Hahn and Don Humison and now John Velas. That's how the House of Representatives. So when Steve ran for governor and he lost it to Bill Weld, the ultimate race in 90, I became the state representative. Spent 4 years there and then ran for the state Senate seat, which opened up in the region.
And who left the state Senate seat?
It was Shannon O'Brien from East Hampton.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So Shannon had been in the seat. Marty Dunn, the former mayor of Holyoke, had been in the seat. And a guy by the name of John Burke from Holyoke had been in the seat for about 12 years. So there had been a good amount of turnover.
Yeah, that's a lot of turnover in a relatively short period of time. So you were state rep for 4 years?
4 years.
And then ran for state Senate.
Right.
And you... Who did you run?
You picked up this little guy named Don Humison at the time.
Yeah, right.
Well, Don became my aide in 1990. Yeah.
Was he your aide when you were rep
state
or
rep.
senator?
State rep.
State rep.
And then he became my chief of staff in the Senate, and then he went off to do something in the either in the Romney administration, and then when Seal Hahn left the House of Representatives, he ran for that seat.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how long were you state senator?
18 years.
And so combined, it was 22 years of rep and senator.
Right.
That's a long run.
So my elected, and again, my public service for Westfield ran from 1986 until 2013.
Right.
So
it was starting in the school
city,
committee, right?
Great community and great support from folks. And I'll never be able to sort of repay that trust and the ability that they gave me to work in Boston in an incredible time in our state's history. So it was very gratifying. And we did some interesting things.
All right. So it is 7:18. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses. So when we come back, we're going to talk about how did that transition out of, that's a long time to work in government. So we're going to talk about that transition. I got to pee. I got so engrossed. I totally forgot. Okay. Oh, yeah. We are also, I mentioned before that we're celebrating Gary's second year anniversary from his open heart surgery. So this is Can't You Hear My Heartbeat by Herman's Hermits.
Every time I see you looking my way, baby, can't you hear my heartbeat? In the car or walking down the highway, baby, can't you hear my heartbeat? When you move up closer to me, I get a feeling that's ooey. Can't you hear the pounding of my heartbeat? 'Cause you're the one I love. You're the one I love.
'cause you're the one I love. You're the one I love. Baby, baby, can't you hear my heartbeat? Baby, baby, can't you hear my heartbeat? Baby, baby.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Comcast and Xfinity.com, offering Xfinity TV, Internet, home phone, and home security services. Information on all that Xfinity has to offer in the Westfield area is available online at Xfinity.com.
Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours. We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:22. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses. It is Wednesday, June 27th. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host. I'm in studio this morning with the chairman of the board, Pete Coles. Good morning again, Pete.
Good morning.
And my guest this morning is Mike Knappich, Vice President of Government and Community Relations with Bay State Health. Good morning again, Mike.
Good morning.
So I promise that we are going to segue into talking about Bay State.
Yeah,
but
that was
we
long.
have to get there. Well, but you know what?
Although I did forget my Irish roots, I'm also third generation Irish in Westfield. My Irish wife reminded me of that. So the Curran family,
Okay.
the Conran families of Westfield were all related.
Thanks for weighing
back
in
the
on that,
day.
Kathy.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Okay, so long history with
Long history.
government
Politics, yep.
and politics and so forth. So that makes me wonder, why did you leave it? I mean, that's tough. So what went into that decision?
Yeah, so it was definitely a difficult decision to make. That was almost a career in public service.
Yeah,
obviously.
absolutely, of course.
12 election cycles, 25 elections actually all told, and very fortunate. And my family was getting a little older. We had two kids at that point. I think they were in middle school age range. They've now both since graduated from high school,
Yeah.
and Jimmy just did in May, off to college next September with Katie down at Fairfield University, the two of them. So the other kids were getting a little older, a little more demanding, and I'd been through a lot in the legislature, 3 recession cycles.
Yep.
You build the economy up, it comes down, you build it back up. We did some remarkable things with the infrastructure in Westfield and building out of that. In the rest of my district, I mean, Chicopee, Holyoke, Southampton, East Hampton, Southwick, the Hill Towns, great district. And so there comes a point, geez, is there an opportunity beyond the legislature? And so ironically or coincidentally, I had a conversation at the time with folks here at Westfield State, and there was, as there always is, people moving around the chairs of administration positions. It always happens. And they knew they were going to go through a transition with the Westfield State Foundation, and that's a role that's intimately linked to the community, intimately linked to fundraising, intimately linked to obviously advancing the mission of Westfield State, with which I had worked for the entire portion of my legislative career. It's a state agency.
Sure,
so
absolutely.
Of course, very close. So
Yep.
Dr. Dobell at the time, invited me to apply, and there were other candidates at the Westfield State Foundation, and I think they felt that my skill set, the abilities to network, to be connected to Boston, would be helpful. And so I was fortunate enough to get the position, able to hire some fabulous people into the family of the foundation, alumni, and Lisa McMahon being one. Bob, I acquired Bob Plass.
You had an eclectic mix.
An eclectic mix.
A very eclectic mix,
Bo Sullivan, Kathy Bradford, Tom Convery, the team here that came in. And, we kind of repositioned both the fundraising arm of Westfield State, the alumni arm, and advancement to do things that they had not traditionally done here at Westfield State. And so now to the point where now X number of years later, 5 years since I'd been here, I started 5 years ago here. They've got a couple of $1 million gifts. They've got some additional employees. They're doing a lot of things they weren't able to do even when I came 5 years ago. So it's very gratifying to see.
Yeah, and we can't really, I mean, I would be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that, the whole WSKB, community radio, talk radio, I mean, that was really, we're in our fourth celebrated our fourth anniversary here on the radio station. So, that was really your brainchild to kind of say, hey, we've got this radio station.
Well, it's an opportunity.
Exactly.
Give credit where it's due. And my younger brother, a little more inexperienced politician at the time, but Mayor of Westfield, I mean, they made a commitment to raise the antenna here on this building to create a larger footprint of where it could go. And then what I saw this as the opportunity. Right?
Yes,
what
absolutely.
is the opportunity beyond student programming, which was great, but really to bring in some monies that were badly needed, both to the radio station, the infrastructure, into Westfield State, and create community partners.
Yep.
And that led to the relationships with the Pathways to Excellence Gala that occurred the last 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
So it's all of those things. Then we brought in Bo Sullivan on a part-time basis, who obviously a radio aficionado par excellence.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
to really help to position that. And then producer Pete, who was going to do that hard work. So Peter did that. Mark St. Jean. I mean, you can't speak well enough about the team of folks here who saw the opportunity. Dr. Michael Filas and the professors who advisors to the club, and the students took to it in a great way because they saw what the monies could do. And to the point now where there are scholarships available through the radio and the underwriters, the generosity of the folks that you have, and the not commercial breaks, but
underwriter breaks. Absolutely, yes.
I did bring this up to some of the hosts that when we got here, the first year, the board the student schedule was barely half full. I mean, there wasn't many people interested in it, and now there's almost a waiting list.
Yeah. Oh, I see it now. We talked, if you remember, so that Seal Hahn I mentioned, the former state rep, Seal owned the local radio station in Westfield.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and prior to that, it was WLDM, and it was a small, every town had like a small radio station back in the day, and the Hahns came to Westfield in the late 70s, bought the radio station, and then blew it up to a 50,000-watt blowtorch, becoming WNNZ.
Yep.
But she would have an eclectic talk show kind of thing, and they used to broadcast the football, the Westfield High School Bomber football, at Municipal Field, and then it all goes away, and people sort of lost track, both folks who could advertise this kind of engagement and the rest of the shows that we have Monday through Friday during drive time or the morning side. And so now we brought it all back. And the volunteers that are here, yourself included, really took to this engagement as a great opportunity. And I know you've got a lot of listeners, and there are blips in the Arbitron ratings and the other ratings from time to time.
Which is surprising because we're non-commercial and we're educational.
And because so much, again, I don't want to we're getting far afield, but so much has changed in the world of radio, and we know that with the acquisitions and mergers and that franchising of things, local content is almost non-existent. So
this has become a unique bubble.
It is.
It really has become a unique bubble in the radio industry that this doesn't happen anymore.
Right. And it's been, it's been a lot of fun. I am now, I think the sort of the last standing of the original host, because if you recall,
it was you and Mayor Knappich.
It was Mayor Knappich and myself for that very first show way back when. But it's really been a great opportunity. I've learned so much. I know Patrick Berry says the same thing. We just have learned so much, even when our guests are people that we know. I mean, there's not a guest that's come on here. I thought, okay, well, we're going to talk to Mike this morning, and it's 5 minutes into, I'm going, I didn't know that. Oh, you knew him. Oh, this, I mean, it's just been fascinating. It's been interesting for us as hosts, so I can just imagine as listeners, and we get really great feedback. So you came to Westfield State, and how long were you actually?
Almost 3 years.
Just about 3 years.
So I mean, one door opens and another closes, opens, closes, that kind of thing. So there was an opportunity then, about 3 years into my stay here, in the governor's office. So Governor Charlie Baker, Lieutenant Governor,
I forgot about that one.
Yeah, Governor Karen Polito. There's a Western Mass office of the governor. There's been one for 25, 30 years, and they were looking to reposition the office. And I'd stayed active in the political world after I left the legislature 3 years before. And Charlie came into office in January of 15. Yeah. So by the summer of 16, they sort of had their sea legs. Like, what do they want to do in Western Mass? Yeah. Invited me in to have a conversation about would I be interested in being the director of their Western Massachusetts office, overseeing the 4 Western counties for the governor's office. There's cabinet secretaries, commissioners, commissioners, and you know, obviously our Elder Affairs Secretary very well, and others, but they needed somebody in a different level who had a different perspective, political and otherwise, to do some of the governor, lieutenant governor's work out here around broadband, economic development, plugging in communities that are very small and 100, 150 miles from Boston.
Yeah.
So I spent the last 2 years doing that, which then paved the way for a position in government affairs at Bay State Health System. So Bay State Health was sort of repositioning itself in its government and community affairs advocacy, was looking around for some folk to kind of come in and to do a different level of work for them, invited me in to interview, and I was successful and started at Bay State Health in February as their new vice president for government and community.
Because it really has
affairs.
become a 4-county entity now.
Yeah, and so I don't know if we're going to a commercial break.
Yeah, I think that we will, because I think this is a great time to kind of transition in. So we'll take our 7:30 break. It's 7:31. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses. So this is Get On Your Feet by Gloria Estefan and the Miami Sound Machine, and you know why we're playing this, right, Pete?
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Westfield Bank. For more than 160 years, Westfield Bank has been an important community presence and commercial leader in the Pioneer Valley, with convenient full banking services in Westfield, West Springfield, East Longmeadow, Agawam, Feeding Hills, Springfield, Southwick, as well as Enfield and Granby, Connecticut. Visit us on the web at westfieldbank.org. We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646. Discussions of local politics, events, happenings, and miscellany potpourri. Ken's Den, Tuesday, 8 to 10.
Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:36. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses. It is Wednesday, June 27th. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host. I'm in studio with the coughing chairman of the board over here, Pete Coles, Pete's suffering from allergies that have kind of settled in his chest. So
yes.
he's having a tough time. And my guest this morning is Mike Knappich, Vice President of Government and Community Relations with Bay State Health. Good morning again, Mike.
Good morning.
And thanks for coming in. So we have now gotten to that point in the conversation where we're going to talk about your present job at Bay State Health and I didn't even know there was a government person at Bay State Health. Is this a new position? Is it something they just developed? Is it something that you took over from someone else, or how did that kind of happen?
Yeah, so it's gone through a number of iterations, like oftentimes happens in a company. And so they had a model. There had been while I was in the legislature, there was a vice president of government relations for Bay State Health that we worked with very closely. That person was assigned to another unit within a division within Bay State, and they went through another iteration and whatnot. So over the last year, they sort of visioned out, how can they best capitalize on the strengths of Bay State Health, which we'll get to that in just a minute.
Sure.
Peter alluded to that a minute ago. Yeah. And also the important work that our government partners do at the state and federal level in particular. I mean, between Medicaid and Medicare and other governmental payments, I mean, we're heavily and deeply involved with government for obvious reasons. And then at the community level also because of the presence of where we are. So Bay State Health has changed dramatically, even in 5 years. Mm-hmm. So our local Noble Hospital came within the Bay State family just 3 years ago.
Yep.
So this is the western region of the Bay State footprint. Over in the eastern region, Wing Hospital in Palmer was acquired also within about the same time frame.
Was it at around the same time?
Yeah, about 4 years ago. And Bay State had owned a hospital in Ware called Mary Lane.
Yeah, Mary Lane Hospital.
About 7 years ago, I think.
Right, which we still do. So and it's been sort of repurposed into more of an outpatient clinic kind of affair, with Wing being the hospital like Noble at this point. We've had a hospital for almost 30 years up in Greenfield, Bay State Franklin Medical Center, and then to the point where there's an outpatient center in Northampton now, right on King Street in one of the plazas, very large facility up in Northampton. We have 3 health centers in downtown Springfield, Brightwood, Mason Square, and High Street, serving the inner city population, about 80 doctor locations. So all told, there's about 12,500 employees.
Wow.
It's about a $2.5 billion company, and it's the largest private company in Western Massachusetts, west of us. It just is.
I would certainly think so.
So for all of those reasons, and again, the dramatic changes in the last half a dozen years just really spoke to them about, we need to have a more robust relationship with our friends in Boston, our friends in Washington. And so that's how I came on board. And it's been just since February, but it's been a great opportunity to work with my former colleagues in these various regions, the Franklin County area, Eastern Hampden County, Quabog Valley, and then out here in Westfield, and then in inner city Springfield. I'm on my way to the State House after this, and I've got to meet with a couple of the legislators down there. So, the legislation that the legislature works on in Boston is something that I'm intimately involved in as their government affairs individual. I've been in Washington a couple of times. We have obviously our 2 congressmen, 2 U.S. senators out here who know that health care is very important in Western Massachusetts. So how I help to position Bay State and its priorities with our governmental partners is part of what I'm helping them to vision out. And then, as you know, I saw you a couple of weeks ago at the Community Benefit Advisory Committee meeting here at Noble, where a bunch of great community partners, yourself included, folks from Westfield State, the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, the City of Westfield, come together under Bay State Noble's operation to sort of think about some of the healthcare needs of the community, how we communicate, and we have grant programs around those things. We have community sponsorships around certain things, and Ron Bryant, being the CEO, obviously is intimately involved in that. So that work in the communities is very critical, I think, to what Bay State Health is all about. What goes on, and we'll get to Gary's situation, because clearly what goes on in the hospital is the calling card for Bay State Health. 5 hospitals, level 1 trauma, incredible cardio operation, neonatal intensive care units, pediatric intensive care units, cancer center, all of those things. But beyond that, what happens in the community to make people healthier is central to our mission as well. So it's been an exciting sort of transition into that, utilizing some of my former strengths, the pipeline of nursing, obviously, the pipeline of health professionals. Colleges like Westfield State are integral to making sure we have the people to populate that we need in a 12,000. So whether it's the community colleges, the state universities, UMass, the private colleges in the region, they're all incredible partners of ours as well. So it's kind of like I've been able to take a little bit of my previous careers, including working with the governor and his team, and sort of bring that to bear for Bay State Health. So it's been a great honor. And
this is just I'm just fascinated with, because my head is it's spinning with what sort of the skills and the talents that you're bringing to the table. What's the learning curve been like for you, Mike, the first few months with that, just sort of, because now obviously the focus is the healthcare aspect of that, which you touched on all of that as state senator and all of these other, and even at the college when with the programs here, but how is that for you at this point? A lot to learn, huh?
I'm glad we didn't do the interview in my first couple of weeks at Bay State. It was,
what the heck?
It's the old water out of the fire hose into the mouth kind of thing. I mean, as much as I thought I knew healthcare, and I'd been a trustee at Noble Hospital at one point, and involved in a number of ways. Yeah, exactly.
Well, first of all, you have to learn all the acronyms,
right?
So it's like a whole other language.
Oh, and I'm still learning. And there's a great senior leadership structure. Dr. Mark Kerouac, who is the president and CEO of Bay State Health and Health New England, has been an incredible mentor, I think, to so many people over there. And his dad was a doctor at Bay State Health. He came back after many years, and now he's been the president for 4 years. So he's got a great vision of where to position it. So as I work to understand Bay State Health, the entity, more powerfully, I'm figuring out how do I plug in the people I used to work with.
Yes.
And right now I can tell you, and we from the conversations you may have had with legislators, they adjourned this legislative cycle on July 31st, but they're working on life science bills, opioid bills, the state budget, last year's state budget, an economic development bill, the health care bill, and other things. So there's
automatic voting.
Well, I'm just talking the health care piece. There's all that other stuff.
All that other stuff, too.
So the stuff that intersects health care is enormous that they're working on right now. So health care is about 40%, Health and Human Services, this, 40% of the state budget. Going back to the footprint of Bay State Health provides about 60% of all health care in the 91 corridor.
Okay.
About half of all in Western Massachusetts. And it's a locally controlled hospital system with our board of trustees. So that sort of separates us from some of the other hospitals. Cooley Dickinson is now affiliated with Mass General, and Mercy is now affiliated with Trinity Health, which is a national 94 hospital system. We're still a locally controlled but large system that's providing health care in some dramatic ways. And I know if we want to transition to a dramatic way, I think one of our great calling cards is the work we do around cardiac care.
Unbelievable.
And show the picture. Get the book. I want folks to see the picture. We have visuals from our philanthropy unit.
We do have visuals.
The Bay State Health Foundation, of which Tina Hall is the vice chair, incoming chair.
Right.
Where's the camera? You got the camera
right up there. Right up there.
Up there. So
there you go.
So there's Tina and Gary. We know Dr. Gary Gorman from his once a month.
His
a month.
First Wednesday of the month. Gary joins us, and I mentioned earlier, Mike, before you were on, that Gary, his 2-year anniversary for his cardiac surgery is tomorrow. It was the day. Today's our wedding anniversary. His surgery was the day after, 2 years ago, and it was an interesting kind of a Bay State story. And I know Gary shared it with our listeners in the past. But Gary's a runner. A lot of people know that. He's talked a lot about exercise and running and so forth. And he's been running since he was before high school. And a couple of years ago, probably about 3 years ago now, he started experiencing some sort of vague symptoms. Didn't happen every time he ran. It wasn't like he didn't feel like he was having a heart attack. He would, kind of have some shortness of breath, but there were different things. And so he went in for some testing. They would throw him on the treadmill and, they'd keep cranking it up and he'd keep running and, everything kept coming out normally. But the problem is that as time went on, the symptoms began to exacerbate and they were more frequent and he just couldn't put a finger on it. And so finally, 2 years ago, and I want to say it was in early June, we went to Bay State And he had tests all over the place, and nothing was coming out. And they did a procedure where they kind of went in through the esophagus and looked at the heart, kind of like through the back door. And prior to that procedure, Gary and I had a conversation with the cardiac nurse that was setting everything up. And, we were talking about our frustration. And I think at that point, Gary was getting, I think we both were getting kind of nervous and concerned because we knew that there was something wrong. And we knew that even though these tests were coming back okay, something was radically wrong, and so we had expressed that to the nurse and then the physician and she was wonderful, and she said, we're going to find out. This is it. The tests end today, and we're going to find out. And that procedure my understanding was that it should have been about a 20 to 30 minute procedure, and it was over an hour. But when she came to get me, she said, I know what it is. She said, we found it. And you could see it on the screen. And of course, Gary was he was still looped up from the anesthesia. But you could see that there was a heart valve that was just kind of like flapping. It was just kind of like hanging on by a thread. And she said, there's the culprit. But the way they had been trying to find it earlier, they couldn't see that from the visuals. So once they had that diagnosis, it was a matter of a couple of weeks before they had him in surgery. Dr. Russo did the surgery, who retired about 6 months after Gary had his heart surgery, and now his son Dr. Russo has taken over. But it was just, obviously Gary was really motivated. I mean, he was a great patient, and he was like the leader in cardiac rehab. When he had the surgery, they put him on the cardiac unit. And he was there for, I think, about 5 days. But he had, when they started his physical therapy, he asked the therapist, it was a square, so you could go around, and he said, how many times around that square is a mile? So the therapist, who was also a runner, said 13. Now, this is like a guy who could barely get out of bed, so that was his goal. And I remember he had the surgery, I think, on a Tuesday. And it was on a Tuesday because I did the radio show Wednesday morning, and that Saturday I went to Mass at Sacred Heart, and I got to the hospital, and Gary said, "Okay, I've got you and I have like 7 more laps to do," because he was not doing them all in a row. Yeah. But throughout the day, he said, "I'm doing a mile today," and he said, "I have 7 more to do." So he said, "We'll spread it out," and we did it. So very, very motivated. And then, of course, he went through cardiac rehab as an outpatient as well. And, they loved him there. And we're going to take a break, and then I'll talk to you about what the article was about the run that he did last year. We'll talk about that. But it is 7:48. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. When we come back, we'll finish our little story, our success story about Dr. Gary Gorman and his Bay State experience, and then talk to Mike about some other Bay State functions.
Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer. Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer. Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer. Feel the rhythm of the music getting stronger. Don't you fight it till you try to do that conga beat. shake your body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer. Feel the rhythm of the music getting stronger. Don't you body, you gotta do that conga beat. Shake your body, baby, do that conga.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Commercial Distributing Company of Westfield. Now in its third generation of family ownership, Commercial is one of the premier beverage distributors of Western Massachusetts. The Plasek family and the staff of Commercial Distributing wishes you good times throughout the year and urges you to drink responsibly.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldstate.bncollege.com.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
Discussions of local politics, events, happenings, and miscellany potpourri. That's what you'll find on Ken's Den, Tuesdays from 8 till 10.
Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:54. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm in studio this morning with the chairman of the board, Pete Coles. Good morning again, Pete.
Good morning.
And my guest this morning is Mike Knappich, Vice President of Government and Community Relations with Bay State Health. Good morning again, Mike.
Morning.
So we were talking about one of Bay State Health's success stories, my husband, Dr. Gary Gorman, who underwent open heart surgery 2 years ago. Last year, Kathy Tobin from Bay State Health invited Gary and me to be the honorary king and queen of the Bay State Noble 5K road race. And that was the first race that Gary ran following his heart surgery. So that was kind of a big deal at the time. And Gary gave a really nice speech at the beginning of that race, kind of, just really encouraging people, because there were some people that were there, that were running for the first time. And Gary kind of spoke to the fact that how important exercise is and his cardiac rehab experience at Bay State. So that was in April when we did that race. And then he ran in August. He went over to Dublin, Ireland, and ran the half marathon there, the Dublin half marathon, with a group from Griffin's Friends. And he's talked about Griffin's Friends on the radio show, and they support pediatric cancer at Bay State Health systems. So a lot of, contributions going back to Bay State Health. So that was kind of his. And then, of course, you talked about the featured story in this honor roll of donors here that just came out at Bay State. So kind of a, just our own personal Bay State Health success story. And I know there are, lots of others. And I know that you're, learning about all the Bay State Health intricacies as you, transition into this new position. So,
it really is remarkable. Scott Berg is the newer vice president for the Bay State Health Foundation and the philanthropy arm of Bay State Health, and he obviously works with folks like you and Gary, and you're generous enough to tell your story, and that's an inspiration to other people out there. And just even the conversations you have here on this show week after week, as you talk about healthcare and nutrition and diabetes and wellness and things like that, that just people don't always have that access to that information.
I think
it's invaluable.
What's interesting, Mike, is over the years, Gary and I have been in the field now for about 40 years, and over the years, we've seen a transition in healthcare from being reactive to trying to be proactive. And I think a lot of what Bay State Health is doing now, the committee that I'm serving on, that you had talked about, the community advisory, those are all how can we be proactive to keep people healthy or to get people healthy again? And, the whole concept of rehab is you had an incident, we're going to get you healthy again, but then we want to keep you healthy so you don't end up back with, some kind of a second incident or, something going on. So I think that's all a positive. I think that's great.
Yeah, no, you're right.
That's where we need to be.
Exactly. And it's a huge change and a transition from where I think healthcare had been traditionally. We had just a quick episode on Bay State Health and what they dealt with in the last year. All those evacuees who came up from hurricane ravaged Puerto Rico, a lot of them came to Greater Springfield. We know that through the school system.
Yep.
Well, where did they go for their health care? Largely in Greater Springfield and in Holyoke was to our health centers, to the hospital, to the ER, in places like that. And, completely unanticipated, unexpected, because the care is available to be there and far superior to what folks had seen in Puerto Rico. And in a lot of those instances with the people who evacuated the island, they hadn't had health care in weeks, in some cases months.
Yes.
So you look at what is the modern day mission, and then to the further point of healthcare in the community, we have these ACOs that they're called, doing population health and dealing with social determinants of health with our Medicaid population to keep people, to create greater wellness in the community, thinking about transportation, thinking about nutrition, thinking about housing, and what is the hospital and healthcare's role in helping to evaluate and to educate out there in those issues, because the healthier you are outside of the hospital, the less likely you are to come into the hospital. But it's a whole new way of thinking and repositioning the American healthcare system, and Bay State has been on the front line of that thinking because it has to be.
You know what, I agree with you, and I think the thing is, I'm sure there are people out there saying, well, what does housing have to do with healthcare? But the reality is that traditionally we have segmented all of that. Trust me, they are so interrelated, because if the stressor in your life is, I don't know how I'm going to put a roof over my head, don't think for one second that that's not affecting your physical health, your emotional and your mental health. So all of those things, sort of come together, and we know that poverty and issues that deal with then you get into issues of nutrition, and they're just it's all interlinked. You can't segment out healthcare from all of these other issues.
It's interesting. We just had the legislative delegation out last Friday to the medical school that Bay State operates in conjunction with UMass Medical. So we created an affiliation 2 years ago with UMass, which is the public medical school for Massachusetts, outstanding national reputation. And the program that we're featuring at Bay State Health is called the Perch Program, but it's an urban-focused medical training program where these doctors are learning those things. So we're educating doctors today in a very different way than they were educated before, to understand what is happening in the patient's lives well outside of when they come to visit in the doctor's office. And these new doctors are loving it. And the goal of this Perch program, of which the legislative delegation gave us $1 million to help operate, is to bring in more Massachusetts doctors, and ideally more Western Mass doctors into the medical school system, so that they stay here. And that's the goal. Actually, the first doctor enrolled last year was a young man from Springfield who grew up there, went to the Springfield Public Schools, and we'll hope he'll stay there because you have a greater propensity to stay. But it's an incredible new focus, and we're pleased. And going back to the issue here at Noble Hospital with Bay State Noble, that affiliation 8 miles down the road has opened up a whole new door and opportunity for healthcare professionals to come to Westfield in strategic investments. You open up the doors at Noble, not figuratively.
I was going to say kind of literally as opening the doors.
So you open up the new doors over on West Silver Street. You obviously will see an incredible new addition, the new entryway to Bay State Noble, brought to you by some incredible philanthropy work by the Noble Ball, the annual Bay State Noble Ball, legislative earmarks from Representative Velas and Senator Humison, who positioned some of the state budget money into that. But it's the first major change of that part of the building in decades. You go into the building, you will see other investments that Bay State Health has brought to bear. and Ron Bryan obviously is leading that effort here at Noble Hospital and continues to and doing a great job. And so we anticipate more investments from the system into Noble to better serve the needs of Greater Westfield. So, the generosity of the people in Westfield speaks volumes, and it's always spoken volumes over there at Noble Hospital, and it continues. I do have to put a plug in for our Noble Ball.
Absolutely.
The famous Magic this year.
Yes, it is Magic this year.
The 54th edition, I believe, and it's November 3rd, and I think it is over at MGM Springfield this year.
Oh.
So I think that's where it is. So we'll get some more details. And real quick, and I know we're kind of winding up a little bit, but I've been asked to remind folks of the need for blood over the summer months, right? So the Westfield Police Department and the Westfield Fire Department are engaging in a blood donor challenge.
We love that.
Next week. Not on the 4th of July, but all next week at the Blood Donor Center down at Noble Hospital. And if you can and if you're able to, come on down and help support the local police and the fire.
Now, can people just walk in?
Pick a side.
I was going to say, and can people just kind of walk in and do it?
Yes.
Do they need to schedule an appointment?
I don't believe they do. Yeah.
Okay.
So
we'll get some more information on that and pass that along through our community radio. Okay, Mike, I've already decided that I think we need to have you on like every 6 months or so. Honestly, no, just to give us an update, because healthcare is changing all the time, and legislation, and we didn't even talk about the nursing piece, the ballot question and so forth. So
I'd love to come back
every couple times a year, I think would be awesome. My guest this morning has been Mike Knappich, Vice President of Government and Community Relations with Bay State Health. It is 8:03. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. Mike, I want to thank you so much
very
for
much,
taking
and have a great
some time.
summer to you and your listeners.
Absolutely. Pete, we will, next week is 4th of July.
Yes.
So we are doing a best of show next week.
Yes, because I'll be in the Hampton Ponds Parade.
Yes, he will be. And tomorrow on Patrick Berry's Westfield News radio show, he will have City Clerk Karen Fannion on.
Correct.
So, which is kind of nice for Karen to come on, not in the middle of an election when she's trying to explain ballots and, all the stuff that you have to do in voting. So she'll just kind of talk about what they do in the city clerk's office. If you think you know it, you don't. Every time every time I hear from a department head, I think I know what they do, but I always learn a lot of things. So that'll be Patrick's show tomorrow from 6 to 8. So I will be back in 2 weeks. Have a good one.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive